alignment. Jason Napieralski, Nick Mehta, welcome. How are you doing?
I
What's
am
new?
doing great. How are you?
Good to see you both.
So, should
Jason,
we just jump in, Julia?
stage yours.
So, this is my first moderating that I've done, and I'm not very moderate, so I don't know how well I'll do. But I'll start by introducing myself. So, my name is Jason Napieralski. Um, I am a former big tech exec, so worked for Google, worked for Amazon, worked for Oracle, and am now recovering from that. And I just started a new consulting company called the Alpha Initiative. And the entire purpose of this company is to help CEOs understand, grasp, and start to use AI. And the reason why it's at CEO level is that that is the person that needs to understand it the most and be able to implement it throughout the business, I think. As well as I'm focused on helping what I would call real businesses, not the kind of business I've been a part of before. So construction companies and things like that that are, just starting to understand what this has to do with it. So that's what I'm working on. And Nick, your resume is 3.5 miles long. You are central casting for a Silicon Valley executive. As a matter of fact, was Silicon Valley written for you or about you? I'm not sure. It
Yeah,
seems.
totally. I was the cheesiest, most annoying guy in the show. What was it? What was that guy's name? I'm that guy. Yeah. So, uh, yeah, no, totally. I mean, that when you said stereotype of Valley executives, I was like, that's definitely not a compliment. But no, just kidding.
I'm glad you say that. But anything else you wanted to mention about your background? I know you're the CEO of Gainsight, which is a bona fide unicorn, I think, at this point. But what else? Anything else you want to mention about yourself in context of this conversation?
No, I'm just absolutely obsessed with AI in a way that's probably beyond healthy. So I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff.
So we're focused here on customer service roles within AI, and specifically around your company does a lot of work with that. So I'll kind of jump in with the first question and just ask you, how is AI transforming the day-to-day work of CSMs right now? Given today's technology, I think it'd be interesting to kind of focus on that first. And then how is it changing, the skills and the types of things you're looking for in CS people right now?
Absolutely. So the first one, we can definitely dive into this more. We're definitely at the center of all this because we're just obsessed with it, meet every company all the time, but also doing a lot in our own technology stack around helping people use AI in driving value for their customers as well as a better experience for their employees. And one way I think about where it's happening today and where it's like coming, a simple like 2 by 2 matrix, right? So one axis is this a technology AI usage for internal productivity and effectiveness, meaning employees using internally, or is it something people are exposing to their customers? And then the second is it a mature use case or is it more of an emerging, which is what you were alluding to? So just to give you some examples from each of those. So a mature internal use case, obviously, write me an email, summarize this document, things like that, right? Those are like very straightforward. One that's I think becoming more and more mature, and I would argue the most valuable thing in probably business, but all in usage of AI, but also I'd argue even as individuals is deep research, which is a feature available in OpenAI Pro as well as in Gemini and maybe some others as well. And it's an agent that you'll go in instead of like the traditional query response of like a OpenAI 4.0 or O3, it's a longer running agent, it'll run for a few hours, and you can go and give it an open-ended research task. So for example, one thing, like an example of something that one of our CSMs used. He said, okay, here's a document of our product functionality. Here's a document of what the client said their goals are. The client had given us like a very detailed presentation of the goals. And I want you to go on the web, look at all the information about this client, news, et cetera. I want you to look at these documents. I'm going to think about it for a while, come back to me with an integrated document, how we should pitch our value to this client. And it was awesome. And it took, it was just like something somebody would have spent all this time and not done nearly as well. So that's an example of an internal, more and more mature use case. And then the internal, more emerging use cases
Hey, Nick,
largely.
can I stop you there for just, I just want to question you on that last
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
Do you
Yeah.
think that this puts McKinsey out of business?
I had lunch with the partner of not McKinsey, but another big one of the other big ones. And he's like, no, I don't think it does. I think what it does though is it makes it so the work that analysts would do is not doesn't need to be nearly as much. That's what an analyst would do. But nobody hires McKinsey to get that report, then they want to talk to that partner.
Right.
But now what's interesting is I can imagine a world where there's some challenges to this one, which I'll describe, but where you're like McKinsey or Bain or BCG or whoever has senior people and just way less junior people, and the client mainly is interacting with the senior people because all that administrative stuff is done by AI. There's a big
Right.
problem, which is, well, then who are the future senior people? Because all the senior people used to be junior people, so that's a different problem. And I think Brett was alluding to this a little bit. And on that internal use case, what's interesting, the more mature internal, the writing of content, the research, etc. What today most people are just using the LLMs themselves, right? Like individuals are just in companies using them and doing awesome things with them. But what's interesting is like all of the products people are using are building them into them. Think about like when you're on a Zoom meeting and now you have like transcription and follow-up tasks and recommendations in the sidebar and catch me up on the meeting. And you could, before there used to be apps that you would use to do those things, and now it's just built into Zoom. So for example, Gainsight now, our products have all the email writing, summarization, all that built in. None of that is novel. I mean, God, like that's like so obvious now, but it's just
Right.
built into your workflow. And so I think some of the internal AI usage is going to eventually, like as it matures, it gravitates into the products people use already versus the emerging ones where you're seeking out new technologies or you're using the LLMs creatively yourself. So, as an example, like we bought a company that's called Staircase, and it's essentially like uses LLMs to analyze all your communication with your customers and pull out all this information about like who they are and where there's risk and all this. It's really cool. And that was a startup and we bought it and now it's just going to be part of our product, so it's just going to be like more mature as it goes. And so I think there's a lot of emerging internal use cases that largely about analyzing data because we all know like LLM's first class job is language, right, large language model, but they're getting better at analysis. Most of you hopefully tried like I've got a spreadsheet, help me figure out the meaning of this, or like something that happens all the time to me now is I'm in an internal meeting and somebody is presenting a slide that was so poorly designed and I don't understand the graph at all because the axes aren't labeled. And I just take a picture and I just give it to ChatGPT and say, what is happening here? And it gives me the full analysis, right? And so I think there's these emerging use cases that over time become more mature. So there's a flow, right? Things start out new and novel. And November 30th, 2022, or whatever, ChatGPT came out and it was super novel to be like, finish this sentence. And now it's like, no, that's like so easy, right?
Right.
But it flows in as it matures, it gets built into the existing products people have. I think people are going to constantly now be iterating, trying new things, and then hoping they merge in. Now, then there's the external side where more and more mature use case is I'm going to give my customer some more self-service capability through AI, self-service chat, instead of searching a documentation site, just ask a question like you would ChatGPT, stuff like that, right? Gainsight makes some products there, and there's other one out there. And then the emerging customer facing use case, meaning like you're giving it to your customer, is all the agentic workflows. So like, we have our conference in 3 weeks and we have this like agentic workflow around automating the entire process of driving a renewal for a company. Like the renewals, like you have to like communicate with your customer and get some information and great use case for an agent. And so we actually are using Microsoft's Agent Foundry and we built this super awesome agent that does that. But those are emerging. Like that agent we have is an alpha. It's not like totally mature yet, but it's real, And so I think we're going to have that world where there's always emerging technology and it just will flow in over time into the mainstream products, but it'll start out as these research projects. And that's why you see companies doing so many proofs of concept on these emerging technologies.
Yeah. So, interesting question for you. You've seen these emails. You see the recent one from Fiverr. You saw the one from
Yep.
Duolingo. You saw
Yep.
these CEO emails. Have you sent
Shopify.
Have you sent a CEO email out like that yet?
No, I think those are great. Like they set the tone and help people understand. I actually shared those emails. I was like, yeah, this is what's happening. I think people just know it. Like I say it a slightly differently. I'm like, look, I care a lot about your career long term, and it's not just about gain sight. Long term, what I care about is, you guys being employable way past gain sight. It makes me super happy when somebody gets a great job after working here. And the truth is, when people can judge whether it's right or wrong, whatever, it's you're not going to be employable. Like literally, as a knowledge worker, you will be unemployable very soon. And I even have a friend who runs another company similar size. Gainsight's a few hundred million of revenue, and friend who's similar size company. And he's like, when we do it was really interesting. They do an interview for engineers, and they have two interviews. One is write some algorithm with, you can't use AI, and they probably have some way to verify that or they trust them. And then the other one is write an algorithm with AI. And if you don't pass both tests, you can't get a job. So if you don't know how to use, in the case of engineering, Cursor or GitHub or whatever, Copilot, you will not be able to get a job at that company. And I think that's why I tell our employees, look, I care about it for Gainsight. I want, we're going to be successful if you guys know how to use AI. I care about it even more for your future employability. And I don't think it's exaggeration at all. And in some ways, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Companies start doing those memos and they freeze headcount, and then they're like only the best of the best, and then like the people that are the quote unquote best of the best are the ones who know how to use AI. It's just a fundamental thing, more as fundamental as knowing how to use email.
Right, right. So you also mentioned in the last, what you just said there was something I really want to kind of dig on, is you are releasing, or you've got some alpha stuff that's coming, right? Lots of it, I would imagine, because that's what AI enables you to start prototypes and things really fast. So one of the problems that's happening in the gaming industry is slop. So all this AI generated slop coming out. So like games after game after game, you can see Steam is just filling up with just slop because people can vibe code whatever they want and throw it up there, right? I really feel like that's happening in AI right now, and I think Google is the biggest victim or biggest person that's doing this wrong. And they're releasing stuff every day that is pre-alpha. So we used to, right, back, you went to computer science school, and you remember it used to be, alpha, beta, right, gold master, release candidate, and then we print the thing. And now it's pre alpha. Just throw it out there, put an X post, and get somebody to say that they just vibe coded, the Declaration of Independence or whatever. Do you? I see this as a risk factor, at least, especially for early adopters, particularly in my world where I'm working with companies that are working in real businesses. Is that they're like, okay, they hear this, they're scared to death, and they want to adopt AI as fast as they can because they want to survive and they want to compete. But then they do with this half baked stuff, and it kind of hurts their mentality, and they're gonna take a step back. Right now, after the DeepSeek moment, right, there's been a very big, like, exponential path of releases and everything. Now everyone's kind of taking a step back here and looking at how this matters. How would you advise other CEOs that are getting burned on these things at this point? Just stay the course, keep going, keep trying new things, wait until things are more baked before you implement it, or what is your advice?
I think it's such a good question, and I think it's not an easy one, and probably why you have your consulting business, helping people think about the nuances of the pros and cons. And I do think that, like, we're in a world where going too fast has risks and going too slow has risks, and they're both significant. And so people are really having a hard time. So I
But
think
that's
that
always been the case. What is different now, Nick? Like, it's always been the case that going too fast and too slow are always bad. But
the
what is
speed,
now?
speed. It's like the speed and the existential nature and again, all of us have biases one way or the other, whether they believe this pace of change and all that. I think it's just going to continue to grow at a level that is unimaginable, because the thing that's happening is we've never had technology that can make technology and that can invent technology, and it will, and it's starting. And so we're going to be in a world where we will truly have that level of, I'm not saying take off and AI takes over humans or something. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying the level of innovation is going to grow insanely fast. However, I think that part of the brakes and accelerator thing is the nature of your industry. Is it an industry that is is like very entrenched, not super competitive, and there's a lot of regulatory risk and privacy risk and other legal risk? Don't go too fast, right? Like, what's the benefit of going too fast? Like, I don't want my PG&E, which is like the power company in California. I don't need them experimenting with using AI to run their power plant, right? Like, we don't need that, right? But if you're in a highly competitive industry, which by the way, interestingly enough, all tech companies are, you have to, because the other company is going to, and you are going to absolutely be beaten out if you're not constantly accelerating. And so I think the thing, and what happens is in highly competitive industries, there's less risk because the risk is much more you go out of business than it is you get sued. Whereas at JP Morgan or PG&E or Pfizer, the risk is much more you get sued or you get whatever worse than it is you go out of business. Pfizer's not going out of business tomorrow, But honestly, like a lot of software companies, a lot of knowledge-oriented companies can go out of business the next 5 years if they don't move fast. And so I think part of it's the nature. Now, but I think the other thing you said, Jason, is so important. As individuals, you're right. Some people try these things, are like, oh, this is not made ready for prime time. And then it's like sets them back. And I think that's a different thing, which is a human mindset shift, which is basically we are in a permanent beta because we are using, I think most people know, non-deterministic technology, at least at a level of the way we look at it. Under the covers, it's still deterministic, but it's like there's no way for us to understand that determinism. They call that computationally irreducible. Like we can't understand how it works. And so therefore, it's always going to be weird and always going to make mistakes. By the way, humans do too. We don't always say that, but it's true. And so we are going to be in a world forever where there's going to be a bleeding edge and it's going to be a weird bleeding edge and it's going to have lots of problems. And I tell our employees, if you're in these dynamic industries or if you want to manage your own individual career, you should constantly be frustrated by AI. So yesterday, I two things happened and like within our course. I was like, let me give deep research as a feature, as you know very well, of multiple LLMs, and it lets you go run a research task that's not like an instant response. It's a batch. It'll go around the web and stuff. And I ran a decent. We were in a Slack thread about what's the addressable market for some new thing we're building, and they're like, we should look at Gartner, Forrester, and I just like said, do deep research and figure this out. And got us an answer in like 10 minutes, right? And that was magic. But then like later on, in an hour later, I had to do a presentation for a company. We had a great first quarter and I wanted like a little graphic of all the awesome things that happen. And although image generation in ChatGPT is better, it's still text rendering is really annoying. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is so annoying. But you know what? The
So
difference is
annoying.
a
It's the
month,
worst.
a month from now or 2 months from now, I'm going to try it again. Or maybe a week from now. And I think that's a subtle thing. Sometimes, like historically, people be like, oh, this isn't ready for time. I'm not going to try it. It's like, no, I'm going to keep trying it. And so if I give people advice, it'd be like, keep trying it. And if you're not frustrated, you're not trying it enough. And that's a hard change. Humans aren't
Yeah.
used to that.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned mindset a couple times, and I think that that's something that's being left on the floor right now. Is that the mindset of the leadership needs to have a much more open view of what
Yes.
the possibilities are. And that's when I spend my time with the CEOs. I spend a lot of time with that alone before we even start digging into what the AI is, of being open to be getting things wrong and to making mistakes and experimenting. And that's
You
what it
know,
lets you do.
and that's a good point. You asked something I didn't answer, which is the personal skill set of employees. And I think that comes back to this like, part of it is insane curiosity. Like, the people that are going to be successful are the people that are going to want to try things, not actually for any reason other than they're interested. And by the way, this is definitely the most interesting time like humans have ever had. Like, it's just so crazy. And so you're like constantly, like yesterday, I mean, this shows you how much of a problem I have, and I'm too obsessed. But it's like 11:30 a.m., 11:30 at night. I'm like coming back from the vet because my dog had a thing. He's fine now. And I'm like in the drive-through because I need dinner yet. And I'm asking ChatGPT voice mode. My side hustle is I love science and physics and stuff. I'm like, what would Immanuel Kant have thought of quantum physics? And I had like a 20-minute conversation about it, right? Now I tell you that story partially because that's a ridiculous example of how nerdy I am, but like also it's just curiosity. It's like, oh, that's cool. Let me ask, like, can it do, by the way, it's really good at things like that. And I'm like, can it do it? Try things, like constantly try new
Sure.
things. People aren't used to that curiosity. And then the other one I think ties to the frustration point, which is grit, where it's like, okay, I'm going to keep trying. And it didn't work, but I'm going to try again tomorrow. I'm going to try again the next day. And I think those two skills, which have always been important, they're becoming vital.
Yeah. So let's bring it back to customer service a little bit because this is a burning question that I have. So your brand and many other brands are very, at least publicly, very human focused. You want to bring the human back into the interaction. You want to make sure the human is super powered. You want to have a human involved, and that's been kind of the way you've gone forward. But given our path here and having inevitably AI agents are going to be more involved in the customer service stream. How do you square that circle of having this brand of being, the best human thing versus, delivering AI in the way that companies need it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I don't think we all fully understand the answer yet, but I think there's a couple things. One is like, what is AI not yet fully great at, which is like it's human relationship building, right? It's not, and it's even unclear what that even would mean. Like an AI is building a relationship with you, but then on the other end, should it just be an AI too? Is an AI building a relationship with another AI? That stuff like is still pretty science fiction, right?
Well,
So
South Korea has entire generations of women that have AI boyfriends
well,
exclusively.
that is the companion thing, which is obviously not a business topic, is
Right.
unique. There's no doubt about that. But in a business relationship context, if you're in sales or customer success or something like that, you still have a lot of value because that's the thing people really want. And I'd argue they may want it more because the everything else being digital will create like it'll almost feel so good. It's kind of like when COVID was in the thick of it and it was like you get to have your first in-person like meeting or coffee or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, this is so great, right? And we're gonna have some feeling like these human interactions are gonna be really valuable. And one of the things that prevents the human interactions and us having that time is that we do a lot of rote stuff, updating data, sending information out, right? Blah, blah, blah. And so the more we make that self-service or automated or AI driven, the better. Now, what's interesting is people have tried to do this for a long time pre-AI, right? Like we all know you call some customer service thing, you have like an 800 number and it's like 7 hours before you can talk to a human, right? Or you go to a website and it's like, hey, you try to get the phone number. It's like, no, we want you to navigate this Byzantine FAQ thing first, right?
Right. I love entering my information 27 times. That's the
Oh,
best, the
and
best, that's the best
totally.
part of
So
it. Yeah.
it's so fun.
Yeah.
And we created these self-service technologies, IVRs, websites, whatever, and they suck pre-AI. But what's interesting is they can get quite good post-AI. We have to be careful and thoughtful because again, like just like you said with employees, if you put too much out there and it doesn't really work well, the customer then gets cynical about it and then they don't use it anymore. So we have to pick our shots even more, I think, for customers. You have to be a little more careful than with employees because employees are a little more resilient to try things. And so there, though, you can say, you know what, these use cases can be done through AI chat. These ones can't. I was talking to one of the vendors that like the CEO of a vendor that makes one of the big ones for like support software. And he's like, look, honestly, if you're a B2C customer, a B2C vendor, and you're trying to like update your subscription for your like clothing subscription or whatever, support through AI works really well for those basic things. Update my password, update my credit card information, where's my shipment? And he's like, they get 80% AI resolution rate, meaning AI can solve 80%. But he's like, when you go to B2B, like a company selling another company, these things are complex. And he's like, 20% is good. And so what that means is don't like force your customers into the 20% and like even if it's not a fit, like give them that optionality. Let them get to a human quickly, things like that. And so I think that's the thing. Be careful. The human part of this still matters a lot to the customer and is still really important in B2B because the situations are pretty complicated. AI can assist. It's still not ready fully to do everything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that there's two unforgivable sins that I see right now in AI implementation for customer service. The first one is slapping on an LLM bot onto your web page and having the LLM bot have no idea what web page it's on or what the company
Oh,
does.
dude, that's the worst. Yeah, I've seen that.
That's the first one. And if anybody's done that, fix that now. Like run a notebook, put all your data in there, make sure that the LLM understands your business. But the second one, you mentioned it, and I think is not done well, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Is the handoff? Is so early and often. Don't let the customer get frustrated and start swearing at the chatbot before you hand it off to an agent. And then the other thing that I think happens is is hand it off to somebody that is empowered to fix and improve things or make a sale or make an appointment or whatever. Don't hand it off to the lowest common denominator rep if you do have a handoff from AI.
I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah, that's awesome. I went
So
one.
we're
Oh,
Go
one,
ahead.
I just said one other comment that's related to this, and I'm not trying to make a commercial for you, Jason, but I will say like this is the biggest human change management exercise ever. And so I think for companies, what's going to be interesting is the technology matters. Like, Gainsight has all this AI technology. You can buy developer AI technology from Microsoft or slash GitHub or Cursor or whatever. But changing people's behavior takes like human change management, consulting, all these things, probably what you're helping your clients with. I just take developers as an example. The ROI of developers using AI is off the charts. And yet you got a lot of organizations where they've given licenses to everyone and you have like 20-30% meaningful use. I don't mean like they use it every now and then. I'm like truly using it. And the other people, it's like you're not going to get there just by like giving them access. You need change management strategy. Like it's weird because I think consulting in this area is going to be really important.
Yeah, and thanks I do appreciate the commercial, Nick.
Yeah,
But one of the things that
true.
I kind of Trojan horse in my engagements is one is I get people interested with the AI because they have to do that. That's an absolute burning pain, right? But the second thing, and we talked about it already, is which is almost as important or equally or maybe more important, is fix the mindset. Think about
Yeah.
this, think about how you're approaching it. But the third one, and this is something that I learned very well from Amazon and have kept it through, is that you need to make sure your culture is designed to be able to handle this. So to be
Yes.
able to handle the change management needs to have a culture, a core team, a singular mission, and the bullshit needs to stop now. And it needs to be, we're getting real. And I think that that's an important thing that I think a lot of companies, particularly ones that haven't really paid any attention to culture, like real companies, they're like, wait a minute, we don't have the right culture to be able to take this next path. So that's equally as important. So all three of those things work together to get this going. But it's all so fresh.
I love it. That's awesome. So good to connect with you. Thank you for having me in this event.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you so much, Nick. And let's just make it a little bit more commercial for 1 minute. And Nick, when's the conference? Where should our people go?
Yeah, totally. So we have a conference called Pulse, which is the conference for kind of everything customer related in SaaS. I know many of your SaaS companies. That's May 27th, 28th in Vegas. So it will also be fun. It's also all Gameside events are that's our thing is making them fun. So it's themed around Wicked, the movie. So I would be the wizard on stage, but it's very logical, tied to AI. The whole event's about using it. It's everything Jason just asked about in every use case. All the tracks are using AI for scale and automation, and we have a whole bunch of stuff. We're releasing this agentic approach to some of the workflows and all these other AI oriented products. So yeah, May 27th, 28th. If you just Google or ChatGPT Gainsight Pulse, you will see the conference registration online.
Thank you
Great
again.
to meet you, Nick.
Thanks so much. Bye.